We're reading Blood on the River, chapters 17 and 18, and I want you to add positive and negative social factors to your list as you read and listen. We're focusing on who has had the greatest impact on Samuel's development during his time in Jamestown. So a lot of people have helped him become a better person. Who has had the greatest impact, and what does a deeper exploration of perspectives reveal in Blood on the River? Perspective is the way that you look at something or think or feel. Chapter 17. The epigraph reads, well, I don't know how to get that sidebar away. Okay, we'll just leave it. The country is excellent and very rich in gold and copper. Of the gold, we have brought a say, an ore sample which proved worthless, and hope to be with your lordship shortly to show it to his majesty and the rest of the lords. From Captain Christopher Newport, from a letter to the Lord of Salisbury. So they're saying this place is great for gold and copper. We brought an example or a little sample of the gold, but there wasn't actually anything in there. And we hope to show you soon. Captain Newport, so remember at the end of chapter 16, oh, what have I done? Okay, at the end of chapter 16, they're ready to, the gentlemen are once again ready to like falsely accuse Captain Smith of something. Now they're saying that it's Captain Smith's fault that the two gentlemen on their exploration went missing. So they're holding him. So they've accused him of being responsible for their deaths, but obviously he couldn't do anything. And right as they're Samuel's down at the river and he sees the ship and he sees it's Captain Newport and he realizes that Captain Smith is going to be saved by Captain Newport. Captain Newport brings so many changes it nearly makes our heads spin. Captain Smith is freed and Master Archer is taken off the council. Our cabins are suddenly crowded with 60 new colonists, and the fort becomes noisy with several new dogs, a dozen hogs, and enough chickens to coat the ground of the whole fort with their droppings. He also brings a new boy, Thomas Savage. The men tease him because of his name. He's a savage, they say. Send him to live with the savages. Our storehouse is filled to overflowing with the good things the ship has brought: wheat, pork, ale, wine, butter, and beef. We eat very well, and since this puts everyone in a good mood, there's no more talk about stealing away to England. There's a fragile peace between the gentlemen who were willing to kill us by starvation and us commoners who were ready to murder them in their beds. It's a good thing we have the 60 new men and boys to help buffer our smoldering anger toward one another. After a few days after Captain Newport arrives, we hear shouts of "Wengapo!" and look to see Indians paddling to shore in 3 canoes. "Wengapo, Captain Smith!" they call. When the canoes land and the Indian men begin to pull themselves on shore, Richard and I go closer. The canoes are filled with bread, fish, and meat, turkey, squirrel, deer, and raccoon. "We don't even need to trade for food," I say to Richard. "We've got so much in the storehouse now that the ship is here." But Richard's eyes are wide, fixed on something. I follow his gaze. In one of the canoes sits a little girl. She has straight black hair, cut very short on the front and sides, and fastened in a long braid down her back. She wears several necklaces of pearls and copper, and a mantle of deerskin over one shoulder. As we watch, she jumps out of the canoe and trots up to Captain Smith. She's fairly skipping with excitement at seeing him. I hear some of what she says as she speaks to him in Algonquian. I bring gifts from my father, now that you are my countrymen. The food is not for trade? It is being delivered as a gift? It suddenly occurs to me who this must be. I grab Richard's arm. It's her, I whisper. I know, Richard whispers back. We watch her as she talks to Captain Smith. She is only a child. Captain Smith says she's about 10 years old, but in my mind she has become like a goddess. She is Chief Powhatan's daughter, the girl who saved Captain Smith's life, the Indian princess who has more courage than 100 soldiers. Suddenly, to my surprise, I hear Captain Smith say in his clumsy Algonquian, "Come meet the boys. They show you my home." My stomach does a little flip as Captain Smith leads her over to Richard and me. He tells her our names. I watch her happy, dark eyes and keep telling myself she is only a child, no one to be so awe-struck about. This is Amonute, Captain Smith says to me and Richard, but she is called Playful One, Pocahontas. Pocahontas grins. Come and show me Captain Smith's home, she says. I translate for Richard, and he nods enthusiastically. I point to our palisades. Home, there, I say in Algonquian. It's my first time trying out my newly learned words on a native speaker, and when she understands, it feels like magic. Pocahontas runs up the hill, nimble as deer on her bare feet. Richard and I follow. I always thought that princesses were supposed to be quiet and proper and sit around looking royal. Not this princess. I wish I could get that to go away. Ha. What? Pocahontas peeks inside the fort gates. The men on guard look at her and raise their eyebrows. She's the daughter of Chief Powhatan, I tell them. Pocahontas whips her head around when she hears her father's name. Then she runs to one of our cabins to look in the door. This is Captain Smith's house? She asks. No, I shake my head. Piaqua, I say, and motion for her to follow me. I lead her to the cabin Captain Smith shares with Reverend Hunt, the carpenter John Layden, and several other men. She is fascinated with the cabin and Captain Smith's belongings. Like a typical child, she wants to touch everything, and because she is a princess, Richard and I don't dare stop her. She sits on one of the beds and jostles it, listening to the straw crackle. She grins at herself in the shaving mirror. She looks at the muskets leaning against the wall and gives them a wide berth. I realize Captain Smith must have demonstrated his firepower to her tribe. When she sees Reverend Hunt's Bible, she opens it and gently touches the pages. I wonder if it's the first book she's ever seen. When she goes to pick up a straight razor, Richard gasps. I reach to pull it away. Sharp, I say loudly in Algonquian. Bad. She gives me a mischievous look, takes the blade, and runs it quickly across her arm. Richard cries, No! I yelp and lunge for her. I grab the blade out of her hand. Richard grabs her arm. Quick, get Doc Watton, he yells. but Pocahontas just giggles. When we inspect her arm, there is no cut at all. She's played a trick on us. "Can you run fast?" she asks, as if she's not scared, as if she has not just scared the living daylights out of us. "Yes," I say. "Running is something I've always been good at." She's asking me how fast I can run, I tell Richard. She leads us outside the cabin. She takes me by the shoulders and makes me stand down the main lane that goes through the center of our fort. Then she stands Richard beside me, facing the same way. "We will race," she announces. It is a warm winter day, as warm as a spring day in England, and around the fort, men are outside working on everything from repairing wattle and daub walls to shucking corn. They watch in amusement as we prepare for our race. "To the wall," she says. I explain to Richard that we are about to race to the palisade wall. He nods in approval. Pocahontas readies herself next to Richard. She counts with her fingers. "Nikut, Ning, Ness." We run full speed down the lane, with dogs chasing and chickens squawking as they fly out of our way. I win by just a bit. Pocahontas's face glows with sweat. "You do run fast," she says, "but I'm faster. I tripped on my mantle." And with that, she pulls off her mantle. She has on nothing underneath, but she seems not to even notice that she's naked. "We'll run again. We will race again," she says. "I will win this time." We line up again. I'm not so ready to let a 10-year-old girl beat me. Pocahontas counts. "Nikut, Ning, Nuss." I pump my legs as fast as they will go, but this time, freed of her mantle, Pocahontas wins easily. "You just got beat by a girl," Richard teases. I grumble, but Pocahontas is already on to her next idea. "Can you do this?" she asks, and wheels herself hand to hand and foot to foot like a cartwheel. I try to intimidate her, or imitate her, but I end up falling on my bum. Pocahontas laughs and shows us again. Richard copies her and actually does quite well. When I try again, I fall on my hip and elbow, but then I start to get the hang of it. Thomas Savage sees what we're doing and comes to join us. Soon, we are all able to do the cartwheels. The men look up from their work to watch us. 3 English boys in dirty shirts and worn-out slops, and 1 naked Indian princess tumbling like cartwheels all over the fort. Captain Newport tells us that the soil and rocks we sent back to England were just that, dirt and rocks. There was no gold in them at all. But the Virginia Company still wants gold, and Captain Newport is convinced we can find it for them. And so, early on a frosty morning, just a week or so after the ship has arrived, a group of men gathers buckets, picks, and shovels and sets off in search of gold to send back to England. They leave their cabins with their nighttime fires still burning. Someone from one of the cabins must have left a shirt draped over a chair near the embers, or a Bible on a table too close to the flames. Someone, somewhere. We never did find out where the fire started. "Fire!" someone shouts, and I look up to see orange flames leap from one thatched roof to another. I snatch up a bucket and race to the river, but by the time I get back, more cabins have caught fire. Flames lick their way down the palisade, spreading like spilled wine. Men stumble through the smoke, trying to find the front gate of the fort. A soldier comes running at me, his clothes aflame. He grabs my bucket and empties the water over his head. His shirt sizzles and he gasps, slapping at the burned fabric. I return to the river, fill my bucket again. Captain Smith is there, shouting, ordering the men into a line. "Pass the buckets hand to hand," he yells. We form a line that stretches from the river to the fort, and we pass the buckets quickly, one to another. Flames leap, and thick black smoke engulfs the entire fort. One side of the palisade buckles and falls. "Save the palisade!" someone cries. I see the men at the fort throwing bucket after bucket onto the burning posts. The wind blows smoke toward us, and it makes me cough. Cinders and bits of ash swirl in the air. I think of nothing except passing the buckets of water until my fingers are blistered and my arms ache. So much work. So many weeks we spent cutting trees, splitting clapboard, tying thatch, making wattle and daub. It's all turning to ashes before our eyes. It is afternoon before we finally quell the flames. We managed to save a good part of the palisade, but the houses are virtually gone, along with everything in them. Even Reverend Hunt's Bible is lost in the blaze. And worst of all, the storehouse and all the food in it has been destroyed. Chapter 18. The epigraph reads, "You did promise Powhatan what was yours should be his, and he the like you. You called him father, being in his land a stranger, and by the same reason so must I do you. And fear you here I should call you father? I will tell you then I will, and you shall call me child. So I will be forever and ever your countryman." This is Pocahontas speaking to Captain John Smith when they met in England in the year 1616 or 17. This is quoted by Smith in the General History. And we find out later that maybe Captain Smith wasn't 100% accurate. So keep that in mind. So Captain Smith and the Powhatan people has formed some sort of an alliance. Or this tribe of the Powhatans and Captain Smith have formed an alliance when he was gone. Remember the ceremony where Captain Smith's head was going to be cut off, but Pocahontas ran to save him? She is saying here, "Captain Smith, you promised my father, the chief, that what's yours is yours and what's his is his." You called him father, so he kind of like pledged some allegiance. Smith pledged allegiance to Chief Powhatan. Because you're not from here. And Pocahontas says, "And now that I'm in England in 1616 or 1617, so this is like in the future from what's happening right now, from the fire. This is several years in the future. So now that I'm in England, I'm here to do exactly the same thing to you. You're like my father. I'm like your kid, and we'll forever be allies because of the agreement that we have. We're countrymen. We're the same." When I lived on the streets of London, I was a loner. It was me against the world. But coming here to Jamestown has changed me. I have learned to depend on others, especially Reverend Hunt, Captain Smith, and even Richard. I have learned the importance of standing together, of cooperating. My circle has become bigger. Now this fire has changed all of us. Our houses, our food, even our blankets and extra clothing are gone. And it has turned cold, bone-chilling winter cold. And yet, we have not all starved or frozen to death. Instead, our circle has become bigger. The day after the fire, Pocahontas comes again with several men from her tribe. They have seen the smoke and are here to see if we're all right. Pocahontas runs to where Captain Smith's cabin used to be. I follow her. She stands among the ashes, bends down, and sifts through a pile of burnt wood. Then she stands and looks at me. Her eyes brim with tears. "It is all gone," she says. "Captain Smith's house, his bed, his mirror, his beard-cutting knife, all gone." I nod. She blinks, and tears run down her cheeks. She wipes them away quickly. "Captain Smith is now my brother, my countryman. My father will send gifts to help." She says it with such an authority that I'm reminded that she is not just a little girl, but a princess. The Powhatan people, whom we have at times considered our enemies, now treat us as their own. They bring us deer skins and bear furs to keep us warm. Every few days they come in canoes, laden with meat and bread and corn as gifts. We start to rebuild right away with everyone working hard. We make the fort bigger, giving it 3 new walls where the one wall fell down, making it 5-sided, and we begin again to build houses. January stretches into February and it turns even colder. The night air sucks the warmth from our bones as we try to sleep in tents made from the ship's sails. Without the skins and furs from the Powhatans, we would all freeze. As it is, we sometimes awake in the morning to find one of our men, the oldest, weakest, and sickest among us, frozen in his bed. And once again, digging graves is part of my regular chores. We make a very interesting trade. We send Thomas Savage to Werowocomoco to live, and Chief Powhatan sends us his servant boy, Nemontack, to live with us. Our circles widen even more, and I think it is a good way to live. We're standing on many legs now, together with the Powhatans. I think of the centipedes that used to crawl over my bed last summer, and I think we are like them, with so many legs. A centipede does not topple in a storm. Namontack, our new tent mate, is 14 years old, or 14 returns of the leaf, as he puts it. Because he is a servant, he wears no copper or pearls. In fact, he wears no mantle, even in the cold weather, only leggings and breechcloth. Namontack has bright eyes and a quick smile. He is taller than I am, and strong-looking, too. I certainly wouldn't want to race him. I'm sure he'd beat me by a mile. Reverend Hunt says it is very good that Nemontack has come to live with us. The Reverend has been impatient to win the souls of the natives for Christ. "We will teach the boy English," Reverend Hunt says, "and then I will tell him the good news of Christ, and he will bring that message to his people." And so Reverend Hunt spends each morning teaching Nemontack a few English words. Nemontack teaches me more Algonquian words as we work alongside each other with the house building, and I'm getting much better at the language. One day we are splitting clapboard, and he shakes his head. "Our houses are better," he says in Algonquian. He has been telling me almost daily what things are better at his home, and so I am not surprised. We do not take big trees down to build our houses. He goes on to tell me how their houses are built with frames made of thin saplings. The walls and roofs are made of woven mats from rushes. He says they're much warmer than our drafty houses. I try to imagine his village, Werowocomoco, and hope that soon I'll be allowed on one of Captain Smith's exploration trips so that I'll see an Indian village for myself. Nemontack shakes his head again and frowns. "Our tribe is better than your tribe," he says. "Your tribe has no women. I do not understand why Chief Powhatan brought you into the Powhatan Empire. A tribe with no women and children is not worth much." My jaw drops. "Us? In the Powhatan Empire? I ask in my halting Algonquian. Yes, Nemontak says with the patience one uses when explaining something to a small child. Captain Smith was adopted into our tribe. He became a son to the Chief Powhatan. Captain Smith is your ruler, your werowance. So now your tribe belongs to Chief Powhatan. You are Powhatan people. What happens to one of us happens to all of us. That's why we took care of you after the fire. Captain Smith adopted? I squeak. Nemontak nods. He died as an Englishman and came back to life as a Powhatan man. I picture Captain Smith, his head down on a rock, with men ready to bash his brains out. Or were they? Pocahontas make Captain Smith know death? I struggle to find the words to ask my question. Yes, yes, Nemontek says, grinning. I am relieved. So they really did almost kill Captain Smith. Then Nemontek adds, Pocahontas was perfect at the ceremony. Chief Powhatan chose her to save Captain Smith because she is his favorite among all his daughters. I bury my face in my hands. It was theater, a ritual. They were acting out death and rebirth, and Pocahontas was part of an act. Nemontak asks me what is wrong. Why am I holding my head in my hands? I tell him I'm just tired. Now it all makes sense. The gifts of food and animal furs, the sudden peace between us. Chief Powhatan is taking care of us because he considers us one of his tribes. If it were just me, I would be very happy with the arrangement. It means survival and peace. It means end to the bloodshed between our settlers and the Powhatans. But I know these gentlemen, and I know they have no interest in being the subjects of a man they consider to be a lowly savage. I also know that President Ratcliffe would be quite surprised to find out that Chief Powhatan thinks Captain Smith is our real ruler. My hope is that, with no one to explain it to them, the gentleman simply won't find out that Powhatan now considers us his subjects. By spring, we have dug a well for clean, fresh water. We have also built enough houses for everyone and a new church for Reverend Hunt to hold our daily services in. Captain Newport's ship is again loaded with rocks that we hope contain gold. I have not totally given up on my dream of riches from this new world, but those hopes have certainly dimmed. The ship also carries back 3 new passengers. Master Wingfield and Master Archer are being sent back to England in dishonor, and Nemontak is going to England so that he can come back and tell Chief Powhatan all about it. Nemontak shows me a stick Chief Powhatan has given him. I will count them people and make marks on the stick, he says. I will be able to tell Chief Powhatan how many people there are in your land. I laugh, remembering the teeming streets of London, with carriages and horses and people and hogs all vying for space on the cobblestones. I think of Nemontak walking along the docks, the same docks I left so many months ago, and seeing our world for the first time. I wonder what he'll think of St. Paul's Church, with its pinnacles and tower rising high as Virginia trees, or the rows and rows of wattle and daub houses with gangs of dirty children playing out front. How the English will stare at him with his deerskin breechcloth and bare chest. I think he will need many, many sticks to count all the people in England, but I don't tell him so. I say good-bye and wish him a safe voyage. The summer of 1608 is much better than the summer of 1607. We now have fresh water from our well, houses for everyone instead of tents, and peace with the natives. Captain Smith continues our trading, so food is plentiful. Still, a sickness comes upon us. We now call it the summer sickness, and many of our men are too weak to work. There are the usual conjectures about what it can be, the usual suspicion that there's a Spanish spy among us who's slipping ratsbane into our food and drink. But Reverend Hunt says he thinks it has something to do with the mosquitoes. We get sick as soon as they start to buzz and bite. One day while Captain Smith is away on an exploration trip up the river, President Ratcliffe makes a decision that costs him his presidency. He decides he wants a large house in the woods, a house befitting a president, and that the lot of us hot, itchy, feverish men and boys will build it for him. He forces us to work with the threat of whipping if we refuse. By the time Captain Smith returns a week later and finds out what's going on, we are angry as a nest of hornets. "He's worse than Wingfield," Henry shouts. "He's been eating more than his share of the stores and lying idle while we sweat and faint in the heat," Nathaniel complains. "He's unfit to be president," John Layden declares. There is more angry discussion, and by the end of the day it is decided Captain Ratcliffe will no longer be our president. He will be sent back to England with the next supply ship. Then the debate begins about who should be our new president. It must be a man who cares about the whole colony, not just himself and a few friends. They want someone who's fair and willing to do his share of the work, not sit idle giving orders. They want someone who has been here since the beginning, knows how to survive in Virginia. When they make their choice, I am amazed and proud. Captain John Smith will be our new president. Hope you added lots of positive and negative social and environmental factors to your notes.